Namo Adidafa. Thanks so much for joining me for our daily practice check-in. Listen, listen, listen. This wonderful sound calls us back to our true home. The first mindfulness training. Aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life, I vow to cultivate compassion and learn ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. I'm determined not to kill, not to let others kill, and not to condone any act of killing in the world, in my thinking, or in my way of life. For Dharma lessons, we're reading Everything We Do Matters by the Venerable Wuling. We're continuing in Chapter 9, Climate Change. With our thoughts, we create the world. Understanding what peak oil means. What happens when we reach it? The United States, the largest oil consumer, reached the peak of its domestic oil reserves in the 1970s. Now, when the United States is relying more heavily on imported oil, India and China are also becoming major oil importers. This is happening at the same time that domestic demand is increasing within the oil exporting countries. So, countries like Venezuela and Saudi Arabia need to supply the increasing needs of their own citizens, as well as their foreign customers. As the gap between supply and demand increases, the price per barrel will continue to hit new highs. This is already happening. In the fall of 2004, a barrel of oil hit $50. Just 3.5 years later, on March 12, 2008, oil hit $109.72. Already we are seeing people in the developed world having to decide whether to spend money on heating oil or on food. Agonizing decisions those in the developing world have faced for years. What do people choose? They're choosing to buy heating oil because it takes longer for children to starve to death than it does for them to freeze to death. Even if we have reached the maximum of global production, don't we still have a lot left? Surely we have plenty of time to come up with another solution to the increasing energy demands. No, we do not have time because the ease and costs of extraction for the remaining reserves are very different from the already extracted oil, both in quality and ease of extraction. Also, new solutions take a long time to develop. As reserves dwindle and become more difficult and thus expensive to extract, the quality grade of the oil also decreases, as does the energy output per barrel. Higher oil prices reflect the additional production expense. What about other energy-producing materials like tar sands? Tar sands are actually bituminous sands that are a natural mixture of sand, water, and bitumen. The largest reserves are in the oil sands in Canada and the tar sands in Venezuela, with smaller reserves in the United States, Russia, and the Middle East. These oil sands are not viscous like oil, thus they must be mined. This process takes much water and large amounts of energy to extract and process. This heavy crude oil is in turn expensive to process into gasoline, diesel fuel, and other products. Currently, the government of Alberta, Canada, has approved the extraction of the petroleum from the sands, even though environmentalists say this complex process will create an environmental nightmare and thus hasten global climate change. The oil companies keep exploiting our fragile planet just to prolong the comfort of the wealthy, who do not want to give up their personal comfort and consumptive lifestyles. What about natural gas? The United States is now a net importer of natural gas. North American discoveries have been on a general decline since the early 1980s. Europe also hit the highs of its natural gas discoveries about the same time. Dr. Ali Samsam Bakhtiari, former senior advisor to the National Iranian Oil Company in Tehran, reported to the Australian Senate in 2006 that natural gas would peak worldwide about 2008 or 9. He also felt that Russia had already peaked, which in turn directly affected European imports. Unlike oil, which can be easily transported in tankers, gas has to be used on site or transported through pipelines or in special tankers, so moving it around is more problematic than oil. What about coal? The World Coal Institute has been saying for many years that there are enough coal reserves to last for another 150 years. But the Energy Watch Group, working with more recently updated reserve numbers and factoring in the increasing rate of extraction due to increasing demand, has calculated that the coal peak will occur somewhere between 2020 and 2030. China, the largest consumer of coal, is predicted to peak sooner. Environmentally, coal is even more damaging than oil or natural gas, as well as being far less efficient. The United States has the world's largest coal reserves, but what has been extracted is the highest grade anthracite coal with a higher energy density than the lower grade lignite coal by a factor of 5 or 6. Now, much of the remaining coal reserves are lignite, not anthracite. So while coal production is increasing in the United States because of the lower quality of lignite, the energy output derived from this coal peaked around 1999. Consequently, the United States is now a net coal importer. What about new technologies? Surely people are working on a solution. Won't something be invented that will provide for our future energy needs? Yes, we are now seeing developments in technologies like solar and wind, but these currently provide just a fraction of 1% of our current energy supply. It will take time to increase both demand and supply. Richard Heinberg, author and peak oil educator, has said it would take 15 years for people to gradually replace their current petroleum-powered vehicles. So there is no quick transition, even when we develop other technologies. Also, these technologies have their own environmental impact, as solar voltaic arrays, windmills, and other necessary equipment need to be produced and shipped. Then we face the not in my backyard syndrome. Everyone wants the new technology in place, but they do not want to have to look at it. Also, for the size of what we're talking about, we need a national and even international energy distribution infrastructure. We do not have a magic fuel that we can simply plug into existing distribution systems. It will take national and regional government action to build a new energy grid. This will enable individuals and companies who produce more energy than they require to be shared with others. Before a new technology can be produced and used, national governments need to do studies of the technology. Politicians need to poll their constituents, listen to special interest groups, and vote. If a bill is passed, funding needs to be found, and finally building needs to be done. Then as we get closer to real production, we have a chicken and egg problem. Before companies will commit to participating in this new distribution system, they will want to see customers ready to use the new form of energy. But before customers install the commercial and residential systems to use the new technology, they will want to be sure the companies will supply the new form of energy. So which comes first, supply or demand? The chicken or the egg? As with any new technology, prices will be high to begin with. As production methods improve and more people purchase the item, the per unit cost will gradually be reduced, and thus the new technology will become more affordable to a larger number of people. But even with lower costs, many people will want to wait for the old technology to wear out before replacing it with the new. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be at ease. Namo Adida Phat. Thanks so much for joining me today.